What's up guys, it's Tyler from Reversion Raceworks. I'm a mechanical engineer with a focus in manufacturing. In a prior job, I was working in the industrial 3D printing field, and now I make custom car parts in our 3D print farm. In this video, we're going to be talking about a couple different styles of FDM 3D printing, going all the way back to the older bed slinger style, and making our way to the newer Core XY flagship series of 3D printers. Today we're going to talk about what we should have known before we started 3D printing. And here's a quick outline of what we're going to go over today. But up first is materials and how they can vary from spool to spool. If you couldn't guess, we go through a lot of filament. When it comes to filament, sometimes it falls right on the money, and other times it falls a little bit short. Whether that's a little too small or a little too big, everything has a tolerance, so it's pretty normal to see that. But what should your 3D printer do about it? Every time we put a new spool on a 3D printer, we retune the flow. We have our own process of doing it, but don't worry, I'll show a little bit more of that later in the video. There can be other issues aside from the diameter alone, so let's get into that. We've run into plenty of issues where vendors either change their formula or just have a manufacturing defect in the filament itself. So if you find yourself bashing your head against the wall because you can't get a particular spool to work, don't worry, either try a second spool, maybe even try a different manufacturer. And I recommend that regardless. If you try new filament, try a couple different manufacturers. Because you might find there's one you like more than the other, and you don't want to lock yourself into just one manufacturer for everything. Another good rule of thumb is to have a calibration part. Just something that you could throw at all these different materials, you have a good baseline, and you could see the limitations of the material. I would recommend going on Thingiverse or printables, take your liking, and stick with it. Up next, we're talking beds. A lot of newer printers come with this already, but if yours doesn't, I highly recommend getting an ABL or automatic bed leveling probe. In our case, we use a BL Touch, but there's tons of other solutions out on the market, and they're not that expensive. Whether your printer came with the bed level sensor or you added it, you have to make sure the bed itself is level. This is called tramming. But what is tramming? On these machines, there's 4 individual points on the bed that are adjustable in height. These sensors can really adjust up to about 2 millimeters. Past that, they're really not that accurate. So you want to make sure the bed is as level to the frame as possible before you start, because if you put in crap, you get crap out. If it starts out level and the sensor's only adjusting a little bit, you get a much better printing experience. Even these newer machines have a way to adjust this. Now let's talk bed adhesion, and I don't want to hear a single person bring up a glue stick, because if you're still using that, you probably like carburetors and tube TVs. We use Demafix, and there's plenty of other products on the market like Magic Glue and others that are meant for 3D printers and having your parts stuck to any bed. We apply it in a crosshatch pattern where you go in one direction and then go 90 degrees in the other direction, and it works perfect. Alright, aside from trying to be funny, why is Demafix better than a glue stick? Well, glue sticks are typically made out of PVA, which when it's on your print bed, it's all sticky, it's nasty, it globs up. The Demafix goes on pretty smooth, as you can see. It's a little streaky, but it's mostly smooth. You can also touch it. It's not sticky really at all. And as the bed heats up, it gets super sticky. So how does that work? When your printed materials come out hot, it sticks to the nice and sticky Demafix, and then when the bed cools down, the part pops right off, nice and easy. And the Demafix is water soluble. So if you want to get it off your part, all it takes is a little rinse of water, and the part is perfectly clean. Another thing worth considering is the type of heating element for the bed on your printer. On these particular machines, we upgraded them because the heating element was left in the center and didn't really cover the entirety of the bed. Let's say roughly from the edge of the bed to this point was completely unheated and was relying on the heating element in the center. Now our new heat element is covering from corner to corner every inch of this bed. On the newer machines, it's really not a consideration because they all use much better heated beds, but it's still good to know what your printer came with and understand its capabilities. When it comes to 3D print bed materials, there's more than you can imagine under the sun. Unfortunately, we didn't have a rainbow unicorn fart bed, but we did have glass, textured PEI, smooth PEI, carbon fiber, and forged carbon fiber. So that's what we tested. And now we have 5 different test parts. we have the textured PEI, the smooth PEI, the glass, carbon fiber, and forged carbon fiber. They're all pretty obviously different except for a few of them, so let's dive into it and show you what's different. First, we'll start with the glass bed because it's probably one of the older bed technologies that isn't used too common anymore. But you could notice it has a very smooth and high shine finish. It's also a little bit streaky, which is due in part to the Demafix streaks, but that could probably get mitigated with a little bit of water. So we could try that out in a little bit. But the benefit here is glass is super flat. It makes it a little bit easier to level the bed. And if you're looking for a glossy finish, it helps you achieve that with a little bit less effort. So we just washed this off with a little bit of water, and it really didn't make too much of a difference. So just let that be known, if you're using a glass bed with bed adhesion added to it, it could add some streaks to your part. Now this is the smooth PEI, which we really don't use too often, but it's a more modern and more viable solution. You could see it's a very smooth finish, a little bit less glossy than the glass, but it's still slightly streaky, and that's because we use Demafix again. But let's see, does the water take it out? Alright, we just did the same test with a little bit of water, and I don't think it made much of a difference again. The streaks are definitely less noticeable, so if you're looking for a smooth finish and you don't want that super high sheen or the Demafix or bed adhesion to show as much, smooth PEI could be a good option. Now this is the textured PEI finish, which is pretty much our bread and butter, and that's because it really mimics an OEM finish very well. In our opinion, it pretty much looks like a textured ABS, so when it comes to, say, matching a car's interior or just making it look a little bit less like a 3D printed part, this does it with pretty much no post-process. And this also has the Demafix on it, and it really shows no streaks. So there's an added benefit there for you as well. And last but not least, we have the carbon fiber and forged carbon fiber. We would really consider these more of like a novelty type bed because they're not as easy to print on. They have a really cool finish, and if you were to use Demafix or anything, it gets super streaky and kind of ruins the finish. So we were able to get good parts off of it, but it's definitely a little bit trickier. So if you're trying to make an aesthetic part, it's well worth it. They came out great. But definitely consider that you might need to mess with your printer a little bit to get that super cool finish. One thing you definitely shouldn't overlook is your 3D printer's environment. We were in past environments where it was way too hot for our machines and the stepper motors would overheat, leading to failed parts. Then we were in other environments where it was way too cold and the plastic would warp, pull the beds up, and again, lead to failed parts. So you need to really consider that if you're trying to get good, consistent parts year-round, because now we're in a climate-controlled shop environment, but it makes it super easy to keep it 70 degrees or so all year round. You've probably noticed most of our 3D printers are not enclosed, but that's okay because we have this nice climate-controlled space. But that also makes it easier for these enclosed printers, like the K2. Since it's a nicer environment that it's starting with at a baseline, it makes their job a lot easier. And on top of having an enclosure, what's unique about the K2 is it also has a heated chamber. So that makes it a lot easier to do exotic materials such as nylons, polycarbonates, and other things like that, where those unenclosed machines would just have a hell of a time trying to keep up. You might be wondering, how does this apply to your 3D printer at home? Just keep it in mind, when you open a door, open a window, you just want to have a consistent environment for your 3D printer, whether it's at home or not. Another thing very much so worth considering is your nozzle for your 3D printer. There's a bunch of different materials, sizes, and everything in between. But don't worry, we already did a great video on this, so check out that link and let us know what you think. When it comes to 3D printing, calibrating is super important. That doesn't matter if it's one of the older machines or one of these new ones. Creality Print makes it really easy because it's based on Orca Slicer, so you get all those Orca Slicer calibrations that are built in. It's good news for the older machines because you could also run them on Orca Slicer and run these same calibrations. Back in the day, a few years ago, maybe I'm showing my age with these printers, you used to have to do some digging and really try to figure out your own process, whether it was going through someone on Thingiverse, GitHub, or whatever. So these new slicers make it so much easier. Let's just go through a couple of them and show you what it takes. A good one is the temperature tower. Orca Slicer and Creality Print make this super easy because they have some preset materials where you can go from PLA to ABS. It changes the average temperatures, and you can just go from there. And it'll make a tower based on those parameters. Now all you have to do is hit slice, and it slices the file for you. But it doesn't show you the temperature change until you go into the temperature setting on the sliced file. And as you can see here, you're ranging from 280 degrees all the way up to 320 degrees, which is at the bottom of the tower. This is just a great way to show you a wide range of material temperatures, just so you could see, is it drooping, is it not sticking to itself. Like one test I like to do with these temp towers is after you examine it and kind of see what you like, take a pair of pliers and break each at the layer line until you find one that's pretty strong. Let's find another calibration. We could talk about flow rate really quick, and we'll hit slice on that. You can see now temperature is not changing, of course, because we're talking flow, so we'll set it to the flow setting. And now you can see there's a couple different colors here. You have your volumetric flow rate ranging from potentially 4.66 all the way up to 20. And what I really dislike about this test is it's very subjective. There's no way to measure this. It's really just which card do you think looks the best and go from there. In my opinion, that's just not the way to do it, so I would recommend adjusting flow with a different means, but I just wanted to show you one of the ones that's built into the slicer. Pressure advance is a pretty cool one. You want to select it for your extruder type. Of course, with this it's direct drive. And the pressure advance tower works pretty well in my opinion. And there's the model. You hit slice, and there you go. Unfortunately, there's no pretty colors I can really show you here, but there's two different lines, and really what you're adjusting is how pointy your corners will be. Pressure advance will either slow it down or speed up the printer and adjust the flow to make it either a basically radius rounded corner because it's going too quick, or it'll be super pointy because it's going pretty slow. So you want to find like a good mix of both so you have good print speed and you're not altering the model because you're going too fast. Then what I would argue is one of the most important ones is your max flow rate. This is very material specific, so if you're tuning a new material, I definitely recommend this one. And here's the model. We'll hit slice, and there you go. It's a pretty simple part. It's only a single wall, but you can see here with these notches, that's going to show you different flow rates. And you could use those notches to really tell you where the flow is. You can measure based off of them and really dial in your printer here. What it's telling you is how much plastic can the printer physically flow with that given setup. So I recommend doing this if there's a tip change, material change. By material change I mean like different manufacturer, a different type but similar. Any significant change, make a new profile like this, which we'll touch on in a little bit. Regardless, this really helps you figure out how fast or slow the printer should be running. So to me, this is one of the best ones to use. I could talk about calibrations all day long. If you want a more dedicated video, just leave a comment down below and let us know. Another great topic that doesn't get enough love in my opinion is 3D print profiles. This is another thing that the new printers do a phenomenal job, at least over the older machines, because a lot of the older machines either came with no profiles at all or such bare bones ones they barely worked. With the new machines, you get profiles for different tips, different materials, and there's just so many more resources online of things you can download and just start at a much better point. I still have my complaints about a lot of them. Sometimes they're not perfect out of the box, sometimes they are. But that's okay, because regardless, they're a much better starting point. So I'll show you what I mean by this. If you look down here, there's some system presets from the K1, K2, all these different nozzle sizes. And then up here you could see a bunch of different ones that I've created, whether they're material specific or bed specific. In my opinion, when you're doing that niche use case, it's best just to create a unique profile. Because a lot of times they need little tweaks that really make them perform a lot better and a lot more consistent. It doesn't just stop with the printer profile, we also do it with materials. So you can look over here, we have all these different material settings, whether it's even the same material but a different nozzle. We do unique testing and tuning for everything in between. So that's nozzle, material, and any other unique combination there, even the beds. And aside from the materials, of course, there's the print profile itself, which will dictate layer height, strength, and temperature, infill, all these other things. So you really have to understand what's your goal, how strong does the part need to be, what kind of temperature resistance does it need to be, the materials. There's a lot to consider. Don't be afraid of having a lot of profiles. Just make sure you name them well so you actually understand what you're doing. One of the most important takeaways you should get from this video is machine maintenance. Think of this as a car. If you have a daily driver, how often are you changing the oil? Some of you, it's probably every month, maybe even more than that if you're putting a ton of miles on it. Or maybe you have a classic car, right? You only drive it a couple times a year, but you probably still want to change the oil once a year, maybe twice a year. The same thing can apply with these 3D printers, because your mileage may vary. As an example, we like to be on like a 1 to 2 month schedule with our machines, and that includes a visual inspection, tramming the bed, doing an XYZE calibration, and applying Demafix to the bed, as some simple examples. This just keeps you ahead of any potential problems and keeps these machines running super good for years to come. We put together this list after years of trial and error and messing with these machines. Hopefully it helps you out and makes your print experience just that much easier. If you have any suggestions or you want to chat some more, make sure you join our Discord and let us know there. Otherwise, like, subscribe, comment, and let us know what you want to see next. We'll see you in the next one.